You think you know what it feels like to be alone? To be unseen, unheard, treated like a ghost in your own home? Let me tell you a story. It begins on a night when the rain wasn't just water. It was cold, hard needles against my skin. The front door of the only house I'd ever known clicked shut behind me with a finality that echoed in my bones. My own parents, they just stood there on the other side of that polished wood. My father's face was a stone mask. My mother couldn't even look at me. Their words, their reasons, they swirled in the storm around me. You're not ambitious enough. Your brother is going places, and you're just here. We need the room for his new office. It's time you made your own way. My own way, with a single suitcase and $300 to my name. The car, my old beat-up sedan they'd gifted me, but was still in their name, was gone. They'd taken the keys. Said it was for my own good. A lesson in responsibility. I walked. The suitcase wheels caught on the cracked sidewalk, a pathetic, stumbling sound. Rain soaked through my jacket, my clothes, right down to my soul. Every light in every warm, dry house I passed was a tiny dagger. That's when the phone buzzed. A message from my older brother, Liam. The golden child. The one going places. I fumbled with the wet screen, a stupid part of me hoping for a lifeline, maybe him telling me it was all a mistake, that he'd talk to them. The message was just a photo. A photo of my room, already half emptied, a designer drafting table where my bed used to be. The caption read, "Thanks for the space. Little bro, time to level up." I stood there in the downpour, the glowing screen reflected in the puddles at my feet. The betrayal wasn't just from my parents. It was complete. A total family shutdown. I had nowhere to go. Friends? I'd been so buried in my own world, trying to please people who couldn't be pleased, that I'd let those bridges crumble. A hotel? With $300? That was food and maybe a week in a hostel if I was lucky. My mind raced, a frantic, panicked animal in a cage. And then, through the haze of rain and hurt, I remembered. My grandfather. My mom's dad. He'd passed away 2 years ago. A quiet, kind man who always smelled like pipe tobacco and old books. He lived in a simple cottage on the edge of town. When he died, my parents handled everything. They said there was nothing of value, just the house, which they sold quickly. But the day after the funeral, my grandfather's lawyer, a stern old man with kind eyes, had pulled me aside. He'd pressed a plain white envelope into my hand. Your grandfather wanted you to have this, personally, not for the estate. For you. Inside was a faded blue birthday card. On the front, a cartoon bear with a balloon. Inside, in my grandfather's shaky script, it read, "For my brightest light. When the world gets too dark, use this to find your way. I love you always." Taped to the bottom was an old, worn debit card. It was a deep, metallic black, but scratched, with his name embossed on it. Alistair R. Thorne. No bank logo I recognized. Just a strange, intricate symbol like a stylized tree. I'd thought it was sentimental. A keepsake. An old, closed account. I'd tucked it into the back of my wallet behind my own student ID and basically forgotten about it. Now, shivering under the awning of a closed gas station, I pulled out my wallet. My fingers were numb. There it was. The black card, cool to the touch. When the world gets too dark, use this to find your way. It was the darkest night of my life. What did I have to lose? I needed shelter. Now. The only place open was a dingy internet cafe a few blocks over. I stumbled in, paid for an hour with some of my precious cash, and sat at a sticky terminal. I typed in the web address on the back of the card. Just a string of numbers and letters. Vigil1864.com. The page that loaded was shockingly simple. Plain black background, a login field. No bank name, no branding. Just the same tree symbol. For username, I tried my grandfather's name. For password, my heart thumped. I tried his birthday. No. My birthday. No. I thought of the card. My brightest light. He always called me that. I typed in brightest light. Nothing. I was about to give up, the hopelessness flooding back, when I remembered how he signed the card. I love you always. With a trembling finger, I typed love always. The screen blinked.
And changed.
It was a dashboard. Stark clean. Account holder, Alistair Thorne. And then a single line. Available balance. I blinked, thinking the rain was in my eyes. I leaned closer. The numbers didn't make sense. There were too many commas. I counted, my breath catching in my throat. 1 million? 10 million?
No.
It was $127 million. And some change. I stared. The world narrowed to that glowing screen. This had to be a mistake. A glitch. A cruel joke from the universe. This was an old man's closed account. My parents, who handled his affairs, said there was no money. Just the cottage. My head spun. $127 million. And it was accessible? To this card?
To me?
A phone number was listed at the bottom of the screen. Private client services, 24/7. I called. It rang once. A calm, professional voice answered. Vigil Trust. How may I assist the Thorne account? I couldn't speak for a moment. This is my grandfather was Alistair Thorne. I have his card. Identity verification phrase, please? The voice asked. I froze. Phrase? What phrase? Then, like a whisper from memory, my grandfather's voice came back to me. Sitting on his porch swing, he'd say it every time I left. What do you remember, Grandpa? I'd ask. And he'd smile and say, the oak remembers the acorn. It was our thing. My throat tight, I whispered into the phone. The oak remembers the acorn. There was a soft click on the line. Welcome, Mr. Thorne. How may we serve you today? I was still Mr. Thorne. They thought I was him. I didn't correct them. The sheer, staggering reality was closing in. This was real. My grandfather, the quiet, simple man, was what? A secret millionaire? A billionaire?
Why? How?
And why did my parents not know? Why did he give this to me? I need to access some funds. I stammered. Of course. The card is active. For larger transactions or account specifics, a visit to a private branch is advisable. The nearest is in the city, at the Sovereign Grand Tower. Shall I schedule an appointment? I said yes. Anything. An appointment for tomorrow morning. I booked the cheapest, most anonymous motel room I could find near the city's financial district, using my own cash. I didn't dare touch that card. Not yet. I lay on the scratchy sheets all night, staring at the ceiling. The black card clenched in my fist. The hurt from my family's rejection was now tangled with a deep, humming confusion. Who was my grandfather? And what was I supposed to do now? The Sovereign Grand Tower was a sleek needle of glass and steel, piercing the clouds. It screamed money and power. I walked in wearing my damp, slightly wrinkled clothes, feeling like a trespasser. The lobby was a cathedral of wealth. I approached a receptionist at a marble podium. I have an appointment. For the Thorne account. She typed, her smile polite. Then her eyes flicked to me, then back to her screen. A subtle shift. 1 moment, sir. She picked up a phone, spoke softly. Minutes later, an elevator I hadn't even noticed, disguised as a wall of polished wood, opened silently. A man in a tailored suit greeted me. Mr. Thorne, please come with me. The elevator went up and up and up. It opened directly into a serene, opulent office. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city. And behind a massive desk of dark wood sat a man in his 50s, impeccably dressed. The bank manager. He stood as I entered, his expression one of practiced, deep respect. Mr. Thorne, it is an honor. I am Mr. Aldrich. We have been the custodians of your family's affairs for 3 generations. May I offer you anything? Coffee? Water? His eyes swept over me, taking in my appearance, but his politeness never wavered. This was a man used to eccentric billionaires. I need to understand this account, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. My grandfather, Alistair, he passed it to me. Mr. Aldrich nodded slowly. Yes. The succession protocols were triggered upon his passing. The assets were held in trust for the named successor.
You.
He turned a monitor towards me. It showed the same dashboard, but with more detail. Lines of investments, holdings, companies I'd never heard of. And the total. It wasn't the number I saw online. I leaned in. My blood turned to ice. It wasn't 127 million. I had misread, overwhelmed, in that dark internet cafe. The number on the screen, clear and undeniable in the bright morning light, was $1,200 million. 1.2 billion. I felt the room tilt. 1.2 billion? The words were a dry rustle in my throat. Mr. Aldrich nodded. Yes, sir. The Thorne family wealth, managed per your grandfather's very specific instructions.
He was a brilliant private man.
Built his fortune in patent holdings and private equity decades ago. He believed in quiet growth. He looked at me, a question in his eyes. If I may, you seem surprised. The letter he left for the successor. You have read it, yes? Letter? I shook my head, stunned. Mr. Aldrich opened a drawer, pulled out a sealed envelope of heavy, cream-colored paper. My name was on it in my grandfather's handwriting. He left this with us, to be given to the successor upon first verification. With shaking hands, I took it. I broke the seal. The letter was short. Asterisk, if you are reading this, the world has shown you its shadows. I am sorry for that. But it also means you have found your key. This wealth is not a gift for you to spend. It is a weapon for you to wield. A tool for justice, in a world that often has little. I chose you because I see in you a heart they tried to harden. A kindness they called weakness. Use this to protect that heart. Use it to build, to shield, to correct wrongs. But remember, true power is not in the number, but in the choice. The choice to be better than those who hurt you. Asterisk. Tears blurred the elegant script. He knew. He somehow knew this would happen. That I would be cast out. That I would need not just money but purpose. A reason to stand back up. I looked at Mr. Aldrich. My parents. They handled his estate. They said there was nothing. Mr. Aldrich's face grew carefully neutral. Your grandfather's instructions were explicit. The public estate, the cottage, his visible accounts, was to be simplified and passed to his daughter, your mother. This, he gestured to the screen, the true legacy, was invisible to them. It was always meant for you, upon a triggering event. Your 18th birthday, or, as per a later codicil he added, upon proof of estrangement from the primary family unit. He paused. He foresaw the possibility of their dismissal of you. The pieces crashed together. My grandfather had seen the favoritism, the coldness. He had planned for this. He had given me a nuclear option, wrapped in love and a call to be better. The anger I'd felt since yesterday, the hot, sharp anger at my parents, at Liam, it didn't disappear. But it was joined by a colossal, terrifying sense of responsibility. And the first flicker of an idea, a plan. I spent the next week in a quiet, secure suite in the tower, meeting with Mr. Aldrich and a team of lawyers and financial strategists. I learned the extent of the weapon. It wasn't just cash. It was ownership stakes in tech firms, real estate holdings, a charitable foundation. And I learned something else. My father's proud, self-made construction company, the one he never stopped talking about, it was struggling.
Badly.
He'd overextended on a new development, the Horizon Towers. He'd invested everything, taken huge loans. My brother Liam's brilliant startup, the one my parents poured my supposed college fund into, it was a house of cards, a copycat app with no real user base, surviving on investor money from. I discovered with a cold shock a venture fund that was, in fact, a minor subsidiary of a holding company ultimately controlled by the Thorne Trust. My grandfather, from beyond the grave, was already Liam's silent, unknowing landlord. The plan formed not as a scream of vengeance, but as a cold, precise blueprint. I wouldn't destroy them with violence or shouts. I would do it with the very things they valued most: status, success, and the appearance of control. Step 1. I became a ghost with a checkbook. Through layers of lawyers and shell companies, I had Oak Acorn Holdings make an offer on the penthouse apartment in the very Horizon Towers my father was building. The offer was full price, in cash, no contingencies. My father, desperate for a liquidity win, for a headline about a sellout luxury sale, took the bait instantly. The news was in the business section. Mystery buyer snags Horizon penthouse for record sum. My father was quoted, beaming about the project's success. He had no idea he was celebrating his own son. Step 2, Liam. His startup was about to have its make-or-break presentation to a panel of big investors. The night before, I instructed my team. The venture fund that was propping him up called an emergency meeting. They cited shifting portfolio priorities and pulled their funding. Effective immediately. Liam's world collapsed at 9 a.m. on presentation day. No money, no backers. He was finished. I watched the security feed from the building lobby as he walked out, pale and shattered, his fancy presentation tablet under his arm like a broken toy. The final act was the reunion. I had my lawyers send a formal invitation to my parents and Liam. It was from Oak Acorn Holdings, requesting their presence at the Sovereign Grand Tower to discuss a substantial, multifaceted investment opportunity in the family's ventures. The bait was perfect. My father, smelling a lifeline for his tower project, was eager. Liam, desperate for any scrap, came along. My mother, always the social climber, was thrilled at the chance to enter such a prestigious address. They were ushered into the same breathtaking office where I'd sat a week before. They looked small in the vast space, trying to hide their awe. Mr. Aldrich was there, standing by the window. "The principal of Oak Acorn will be with you shortly," he said. Then the wooden elevator door slid open, and I walked out. I was wearing a suit that cost more than my father's car, but that wasn't the important part. The important part was the look on their faces. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father's jaw went slack, his face draining of blood. Liam just stared, uncomprehending. "Hello," I said, my voice calm, filling the silent room. "You wanted to discuss an investment?" My father found his voice first, a sputter of confusion and anger. "What is this? A joke? How did you get in here?" I walked slowly to the desk Mr. Aldrich had vacated for me, and sat down. I leaned back, steepling my fingers. "Oak Acorn Holdings isn't a joke, Father. It's the investment vehicle for the Thorn Trust, which I control." I let that hang. My mother whispered, "Thorn? Grandpa Thorn?" He had nothing. "He had everything, Mother," I said, not unkindly. "He just didn't trust you with it. He saw what you were, what you had become." I turned the monitor. I showed them the number. The 1.2 billion. The color left my father's face completely. He looked like a man who had just seen the earth open up beneath him. This is impossible." "It's very possible," I said. "And it's why I bought the penthouse in your failing tower. It's why Liam's funding vanished overnight." Liam flinched as if struck. That was you?" His voice was a broken thing. "All it took was a phone call, Liam," I said softly. "One call. The same number of calls it took for you to thank me for my old bedroom." The shame on his face was a tangible thing. My father was rallying, anger replacing shock. "You vindictive little, after all we did for you. We raised you." "You housed me," I corrected, my voice hardening for the first time. "There's a difference. You raised Liam. You nurtured him. You kicked me out into the rain with $300 and a suitcase. You told me I was nothing. Grandpa." I tapped the screen. "He told me I was his brightest light. He gave me this.
Not to be like you.
But to be nothing like you." The room was thick with a silence more powerful than any scream. My mother was crying silent tears, but I couldn't tell if they were from guilt, shock, or ruined social ambition. My father looked broken, his self-made identity shattered by the revelation that his own despised son held the power to make or break his life's work with a whisper. Liam just looked at the floor, his golden boy aura extinguished. "So what now?" my father finally rasped. "You ruin us? Is that your grand revenge?" I looked at them, the three people who were supposed to be my shelter, my first tribe. I thought of my grandfather's letter. Asterisk, true power is not in the number, but in the choice. The choice to be better. Asterisk, the heat of my revenge plan had been satisfying to build, but now, in this moment of absolute victory, it felt hollow. Crushing them would make me a curator of their misery, just as they had been of mine. No, I said, standing up. I'm not going to ruin you. That would make me your mirror image. I picked up a folder from the desk. This is a proposal. The loan on Horizon Towers will be restructured through one of my banks with reasonable terms. The project will continue. You'll keep your company, Father, but a board member from the trust will oversee it to ensure it's run ethically and that you don't gamble with other people's livelihoods again. I tossed another paper to Liam. That's the contact for a business incubator program my foundation funds. It's for founders with real ideas, not copycats.
You can apply.
Like everyone else. No special treatment. Finally, I looked at my mother. The family foundation will be expanding. It will focus on helping homeless youth. You can volunteer on the outreach committee, if you want. They were stunned. This wasn't destruction. It was enforced redemption. A forced chance to be better. It was mercy, but a mercy with teeth and conditions. It was justice, not vengeance. Why? My father whispered, utterly defeated. Why would you do this after what we did? I looked out the window, at the vast city below, thinking of a quiet man in a cottage who believed in oaks and acorns. Because my grandfather didn't give me $1 billion to become a monster, I said quietly, turning back to them. He gave it to me to learn how to be a man. You taught me in the worst way possible, what that shouldn't look like. Now I have to figure out what it does. I pressed a button on the desk. Mr. Aldrich will see you out. The lawyers will be in touch about the details. I didn't watch them leave. I heard the soft sigh of the elevator door, and then I was alone in the towering silence. The revenge was complete, but it didn't taste sweet. It tasted like responsibility and loneliness, and the bittersweet ache of a lesson learned too hard. I had all the money in the world, but I still didn't have a family. What I had was a legacy and a choice. I could let their betrayal define me, or I could let my grandfather's faith in me guide me. I chose the latter. The Thorn Foundation is now one of the largest supporters of youth housing and education programs in the country. I never got an apology from my parents or Liam, but I see my father sometimes at the occasional board meeting for his now stable company. He's quieter. He listens. My mother runs the charity gala for the foundation every year. She's good at it. Liam's new company, born from that incubator, is modest but genuinely innovative. He sent me a product sample once with a note that just said, "Thanks for the second chance. We're not a family. Not really. But we're not enemies either. We're a broken vase that was glued back together by $1 billion adhesive. You can still see the cracks if you look closely. You can always see the cracks. The moral of the story isn't that money fixes everything. It doesn't. It didn't buy me back my childhood or erase the cold of that rainy night. The moral is about sight. My parents were blinded by their own narrow vision of success. They couldn't see the value right in front of them. They dismissed the gentle soul, the quiet heart, the unambitious boy. And in doing so, they lost him forever. They traded a son for an office and a favored child's ego. The greatest revenge isn't always annihilation. Sometimes, it's simply becoming the person they never believed you could be, and then offering them a glimpse of that person from behind a wall of glass they can never breach. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do with your pain is not to reflect it back, but to transform it into something that protects others from feeling the same. The oak remembers the acorn, but it doesn't stay in the dirt. It grows, it shelters, it becomes. No matter how dark the night, no matter how hard the rain, remember that.
Grow.